Hey y'all, welcome back to yet another screencast. It's Mr. Reardon broadcasting live from JCIB. It is September 22nd, 2014. We just crossed over the autumnal equinox. The days will be getting shorter and, get this kids, we'll be getting closer to the sun. This webcast, as well as all the other webcasts, are brought to you by some beverage today. LaCroix, water in a can. I'm going to be discussing basic ecology with you guys today, talking about why we're doing ecology the way we're doing it. Before we get too far into it, I do want to show you guys some really important resources. Number one, ladies and gentlemen, do not be afraid to check the blog. I have uploaded not only some overview ideas about what ecology is, but I've gone ahead and thrown in our daily grind for the next several weeks. And you can see that we are planned out all the way through the end of the month and into October looking at ecology. So be ready for that. Need you looking at that. Other resources that you absolutely positively want to use are your IB guide if you've got one. The way that this higher level course is set up, the intro ecology stuff is called Ecology and Evolution. We're going to do the evolution in the spring, but you want to be starting looking at pages 40 and 41 in your IB guide. Or if you've got the big book, we're hanging around about page 120 talking about ecosystems right now, and all this stuff is in there. Also, don't be afraid of this big, beautiful textbook. Chapters 50 through 55, we'll concentrate on chapters 50 through 54. Those are your chapters on ecology. They're an easy read. I'm not going to do a whole lot of out-of-the-book teaching in class, but you definitely want to sit down and thumb through the book because it's going to be super helpful. You'll know which figures are important. Again, the whole focus of this webcast is to really get your heads around why we're doing ecology the way we're doing it. I want to start off with just a simple conceptual map. As I've said in class, I'm trained as an ecologist. I came to Alabama to study ecology, so this is really one of my love units. I love that ecology comes from the Greek word oikos, which means house or home, and that's a real nice metaphor for the way ecology works. So traditionally, the way that ecology is taught is we think about it hierarchically. You know, populations, communities, ecosystems. Here, what I want you to think about is how big systems funnel down into smaller systems, and then I'm going to teach you some of those connections. So let's imagine that this box right here is a house, all right? And that house is comprised of different systems. So where we started last week was with ecosystems, kind of understanding how matter and energy cycle through an ecosystem. You'll notice if you go back that line was purple, cheeky, energy is red, material is blue, so combining those two concepts in ecosystems we get a purple line. For my friends in second block, you guys started on community ecology with me. Notice that line is green, thinking about the primary producers in a community, really basing all of those interactions. So we'll be in the communities this week and next week, and then coming outside of that, we'll start to look at the populations. That is the groups of species which make up these communities, and then we'll funnel down finally to a really interesting little laboratory activity where we start to look at individual animals and how they respond to certain stimuli, and that's going to be the nice wrap. So if you look at the way these ecosystems set up, one more, we're going to funnel down from the big systems down to the small systems, and I hope that becomes kind of the way you think about ecology as well. Now for the meat of this discussion. What I'm going to do in this mind map is walk you through the overview of our unit. Much like our plant science unit, I've got this webinar broken up into essential concepts, and then class activities, and then essential lab work. But here, understand this. When we look at essential concepts, it looks quite nebulous, and that's because ecology is a big idea. It's something that's been studied for about 150 years, and we're just really scratching the surface of the surface. But when you look at what we're doing in class, we're going to start out looking at ecosystem ecology, and we'll focus on two main concepts here. We're going to look at ecosystem energetics and ecological efficiency, and if we spread that out, We're going to see all of our IB assessment statements. This mind map will be on the blog, so you can look at the still there. But notice that these four things, excuse me, relate specifically to understanding how ecosystems function. The next thing we're going to look at is biogeochemistry, and this is quite simple. For our purposes, we're just going to focus on the carbon cycle and on climate change. Looking ahead and where we are this week in class, we're going to do 3 weeks on community ecology. The first one looking specifically at trophic interactions, that is looking at food chains and trophic, this would be trophic, not tropic pyramids, and then also looking at food webs. Food webs being, if trophic pyramids are pretty clean because we're looking at energy transfer, food webs can get kind of messy because here we're talking about different individuals feeding upon each other, and it can get kind of messy. Following that basic stuff on trophic interactions, we're going to talk a little bit about how communities change through both space and time, and that deals with this concept of succession. We'll take a walk and look at that, and then we'll start to quantify some community ecology by actually calculating a biodiversity index, and we'll talk about why it matters as well. Looking ahead, one of the things that the IB is really interested in is this idea of species interactions. They, like the great ecologists from the 20th century, are really focused not so much on microorganisms but on macroorganisms. We'll spend quite a bit of time talking about what the niche concept is, and then we will outline multiple ways that plants and animals interact with each other so that as we can kind of get a feel for how their niche changes and how the actions of one organism affect other members of their community. Moving past that, then we're going to get into population ecology. And this is one of those things that you saw in 9th grade with Ms. Beaton, but man, the IB really gets after it. We want to understand both population growth as well as life history. So population growth, you're going to see that it gets quite busy quickly, but ultimately what we're going to explore is how a population changes over time. And every population on this planet, regardless of what it is going to be limited by some resource. That means that populations will exhibit a predictable trajectory. They will grow slowly at first, they will accelerate through an exponential growth phase, and then level off as they reach their carrying capacity. You're going to understand that incredibly well before you get out of this unit. And then we are going to look at essential lab work because the applied ecology and conservation biology stuff I'm not doing this year with y'all. That's a higher level option that I'm going to just kind of put to bed for this year. We don't need to do it. Looking forward at some of the class activities. Some of these are quick and some of them are extensive, and there's a lot of them. So look at how things just branch out automatically. Last week we learned how to build ecosystem models, and we looked at energetic efficiencies in that model. And then this week, Courtney and her colleagues and some of the other folks in second block started to model a desert ecosystem, and they looked for relationships between both pyramids of numbers and pyramids of biomass. And if you haven't had that in class yet, it will start to make more sense as the week unfolds. And then we're going to start working with real data sets, both from this desert ecosystem and from another simulation called Survival of the Sweetest, where we will calculate species richness, species evenness, and then we will all calculate the Simpson's diversity index. I'm going to spend a little bit more time here maybe than most instructors do, because these community ecology concepts give you a great opportunity to build your own internal assessment, maybe looking at species richness, evenness, and diversity in your backyard or in a field near your home or even in the laboratory. These are great little communities can be harnessed into small spaces so that you can study their changes over time. And I strongly encourage you guys to talk to me about that. I want you to take advantage of some really good and simple opportunities. Then we're going to move into kind of the IB sweet spot, no pun intended, by working with a model using Skittles, where we will start to really uncover the idea of fundamental and realized niche, and I'll introduce one of my favorite concepts, carrying capacity. And then that will lead us into this population ecology suite, where we'll again look at logistic growth, as well as lots of other concepts related to populations, specifically understanding the idea of an R-selected species and a K-selected species, and how, thank you sir, how an organism's schedule of reproduction really defines how the population grows over space and time. We do need to look at some climate data, specifically for the carbon dioxide, and understand how CO2's relationship to global climate change. And then I want to just to kind of have some fun. We'll go outside and we'll look at biodiversity around campus, again, trying to get you interested in some potential internal assessments. And then I don't want to forget this. We're going to head out to the Cahaba River in the spring and apply some of these ecology concepts to one of the most valuable resources in our state and perhaps in the nation. We only do one lab in this unit, and we do lots of labtivities, trademark. We'll do one lab, and it's going to be on animal behavior. Here, you and your colleagues will learn how organisms and their environment affect their distribution, and then more importantly, you are going to learn how an animal will respond either positively or negatively to a certain stimulus. And then here, great opportunity for an internal assessment. In fact, you're kind of a fool not to do an animal behavior study because they are so clean. They offer the opportunity to do some nice descriptive statistics and allow you to do some nice hypothesis testing as well. Before I get out of here, I do want you to realize that your ecology unit is not a standalone unit. One of the reasons I place it right in the middle of the first semester is because it has incredible connections to two other really important units. One being bioenergetics, which tends to be the most complicated unit of the year, and what you learn about ecosystem, ecological efficiency, and trophic relationships will help you better understand bioenergetics. And then it's worth noting that the guys, that is really the males that drove evolutionary theory, both Charles Darwin and Alfred Wallace, they were ecologists, specifically population and community ecologists, and it was their understanding of the natural world that led to their theories of evolution by natural selection. And that's incredible connections between what we're doing here and what we'll be doing later in the year. But in terms of bioenergetics, just think about some simple stuff. Energy conversion, solar to chemical, harvesting chemical from one organism to another, that's bioenergetics. And then understanding producers, that is our plants, algae, cyanobacteria, and then the consumers, you and I. And then in terms of connections to evolution, I mean, it's really unlimited. Thinking about adaptations to certain ecosystems, the cost benefits therein. Thinking about how survivorship and how population growth actually drives natural selection, and then also thinking about community ecology. Where are organisms and why are they there? Well, really it has everything to do with natural selection, both in terms of the abiotic factors and thinking about an organism's tolerances, as well as biotic factors like competition, predation, and parasitism. We'll uncover all those ideas in this unit, and then that will help you better understand how the world works when we think about evolution and natural selection. Come to class, come ready to work, because there will be very little lecture. There'll be a whole lot of doing, and then it will be up to us to find the time to stop, reflect, and figure out how all this stuff connects. See you in class.